rise from the ruins? Do you believe that you can persist even when you feel powerless? Believe you can. Believe you can. Believe. Good afternoon. Is it afternoon yet? So I love, by 10 minutes. So I love sharing spoken word poetry because that has emerged out of my journey and experience with mental health and mental illness. And I know some people in here have been bruised by the scars of mental health and mental illness, whether themselves, whether a friend, whether a family member. So today, we're going to unpeel those wounds and look to heal them because each of us has been impacted, whether we know it or not. So, before I move any further, I'm not going to talk about myself. I'm going to talk about mental health and mental illness and ultimately acceptance and what we can do today. And you can look online and see all about the things that I'm doing. But most importantly, it's about us, about you and what we can do together, right? So, raise your hand if you know anyone impacted by a physical condition. Raise your hand if you know anybody. Okay, so what are some of those physical conditions? Shout them out. Stress. What else? Cancer, stroke, right? COPD. Okay. Now raise your hand if you know somebody impacted by mental illness. Raise your hand. Wow. Look at that, right? And I ask this question wherever I go. I was just in Jamaica, and Jamaica, believe it or not, was colder than South Florida, so the temperature turned up as I flew up. And I ask this question everywhere I go, get the same response. The first question, people shoot their hands straight up. Of course I know somebody with a physical condition, you know. And the second question, in here it didn't, but the second question, hands go up like this, right? And why do you think there's a hesitation? Why do you think there's a hesitation? Embarrassment and stigma, right? And that, I believe, is stigma in action. And that's what we're here to fight. That's what we're here to change. That's what we're doing right now. So before I go any further, I want to thank all the elected officials here. I want to thank everybody in here who is here and who's been impacted and uplifted and sometimes even beaten down by mental illness. I'd also like to thank the Boca Raton Promise and the board because you have been doing phenomenal work in this area. So this afternoon, we're going to be united under the banner of acceptance. And under the banner of acceptance, I believe there are three choices we have to make. Say three choices. There are three choices we have to make under the banner of acceptance. And the first choice we must make is to say that it's okay to talk about mental illness. Say with me, it's okay.
It's okay.
It's okay.
Saying it's okay is an intentional act. Acceptance is not passive. Acceptance is an intentional act. But beyond saying that it's okay, we must move into action. Notice that it's the action alliance. So we must move into action. So beyond saying that it's okay, we must understand that there's absolutely no shame in seeking help for mental illness. Say with me, there is no shame.
There is no shame.
Once we can speak about mental illness, once we know that there is no shame, I ultimately believe that there is hope. So say with me, there is hope.
There is hope.
I love it. Coming from the gut and the guttural sound. Yes. So I know about shame, personally. When I was 19, I was actually diagnosed with bipolar disorder. I was in college at Harvard University, first African-American male valedictorian in my high school, going to Harvard University, 1998, having a good time, 17 years old, hanging out at a party, boom, get hit by an anxiety attack. Year later, boom, hit by my first manic episode. A year later than that, boom, my second manic episode, diagnosed with bipolar disorder, hospitalized, taking medication, blew up to 60 pounds, heavier than I was, went back to school, my mind slowed to a crawl, took a year and a half off from school, came back Fortunately, with the support and love and care from my family, I graduated with honors and support and treatment. 6 years after I graduated, I still didn't tell closest family members and friends about my struggle and my journey with mental illness. I hid in shame. Shame can kill. Shame can kill. One of my friends, his name was Stephen Rose, and we were at Harvard University together. And I was what you call a super senior. I came back to school and I was the old guy on campus, right? So how many people know about the super seniors? You remember super seniors on campus walking around like they know everything, but they're just really the old guy? And I was the super senior, but I was fortunate enough to meet people all the way from class of 1999 to class of 2008. And in one of those classes, his name was Stephen Rose. And Steve was an affable guy, very funny, warm guy. Every time you saw him, he had a beautiful smile on his face. And we would see each other in passing. He was a young African-American guy. We would see each other in passing. And then we would often say, "Hey, Steve, how you doing? How's everything going?" And he would say, "Everything's all right. Everything's good, Hakeem. Everything's okay." And then I would say back to him, how's psychology class going? "Yeah, everything's fine. Everything's great. Everything's okay." Fast forward 2 years ago. I'm standing at a after-work party. Then I get a buzz on my phone. And I look down and I start scrolling through. Wait, I gotta step outside. I stepped outside into the February air. And what I saw on my phone was that we regretfully inform you, Stephen Rose has died by suicide. Stephen leapt to his death off of the same psychology building we used to attend class in 6 years earlier. Everything was not all right. Everything was not okay. And I know this community has been struck by the wrath of suicide and mental illness. Who in here has been impacted by that? Who in here knows the depth of loss from mental illness and suicide? Because sometimes everything is not all right and everything is not okay. Fortunately, his family has now started a fund called the Steve Rose Fund. And they go across the country and support students of color through raising funds and raising awareness. They have taken their pain and turned it into triumph because they don't want anybody else to go through what he went through. We were two young African-American men on campus at the same time. His path went one way. I'm standing here today. I've been impacted by shame. But I want you to know that it's okay to talk about mental illness. I believe that if we can talk about mental illness under this banner of acceptance, you might not have a Stephen Rose in your life anymore. So if we say that it's okay, more than saying that it's okay, we must act. We must seek help. Say there's absolutely no shame.
Absolutely no shame.
So I speak across the country and I speak at colleges and high schools and middle schools. And thus far I've spoken to over 30,000 students, some right here in Florida. And in one event that I was speaking at, I was in Malloy College, and it's a college about 5 minutes away from my house. And I was giving a talk about acceptance just like this one, similar to this one. And in the audience, during the talk, there was 120 people there. It was faculty and staff. And there was this young man and his mother, who I found out later on was his mother. And do you know when somebody's about to cry, you can see it on their face, like just holding the tears back, So throughout the presentation, her face was taut and tight, and she was holding the tears back. During the question and answer section, this young man shot his hand straight up. I said, Daniel, I saw his name, Daniel, what you got to say? He said, I have what you have. I said, what do you mean? He said, I have what you have. I said, what do you mean? I have bipolar disorder. And his mom burst into tears. And do you know, she said, Daniel, Hakeem, that was the first time Daniel has said he has bipolar disorder since he was diagnosed over a year and a half ago. He has never admitted it. However, through that moment of connection, he said that, you know what? There's no shame. And I followed up with them 6 weeks later and then a year later. And actually, Daniel's now working. He is back in school. He said he has still some highs and lows, but he's doing well. He's getting better. He said that there is no shame. He talked about mental illness. He accepted. I want to ask you, where in your life, maybe personal, professional, do you have to say that there's no shame around mental illness? Where in your life? Because ultimately, stigma is not about the other person. It's about us, right? Stigma is never about the other person. Stigma is about who we think we are and how we think we appear to other people. Stigma is not about the other, it's about us. So I ask you to choose to say that there is no shame. Say with me, there is no shame.
There is no shame.
Finally, there is absolutely hope.
Absolutely hope.
There's absolutely hope.
There's absolutely hope.
A month ago, I was in Kentucky, actually, at the University of Louisville. And there was, for a talk that I was giving about I am acceptance to college students. And the day after that I spoke, I got a call. I was sitting in the hotel room, and I got a call. And I didn't pick up the phone because I didn't know what the number was. And I got a call, then I picked up the phone, and I heard the voice message. It was a young man. He was crying. He was crying on the phone. And he said, Hakeem, I wasn't able to make it to your session yesterday. I'm gay. I have bipolar disorder. I'm a student. I work at the University of Louisiana, and I'm stuck in the basement because I don't feel like I can go out and get help. I called him right back. And he said, we spoke for about 10 minutes, right? And then after he spoke, he went to the counseling center. He said, I'm going to go over to the counseling center now. I said, can you do that by yourself? He said, yes, I can. The next day he called me. He actually texted me. I gave him my number. And he said, you know what, Hakeem? Thank you for being there and sharing with me that it's okay to go to the counseling center. I have a counselor, but I forgot that I could go and get the help that I need. And what I was reminded in that moment, that mental illness is not a death sentence. Mental illness is not a death sentence. Mental illness, in fact, can show you that you have pain to rise up above what you're going through. Mental illness can rip apart a community, but if a community can come together under the banner of acceptance and say, you know what? There's absolutely no shame in seeking help. It's okay to talk about mental illness, and if you're diagnosed with a mental illness, there is absolutely hope. I believe that anything is possible. So, before I leave here, I would like to make a request. I would like to make a request and ask that if you can take a moment and think about where in your life could you be intentional, and many of you are already, where in your life could you be intentional about saying that it's okay, about no shame in seeking help, and understanding that there's absolutely hope? Is it about passing a legislation? Is it about talking to your son or daughter and saying that, you know what, I can take you to the hospital because there's no shame in you going to get the help that you need? Is it about a friend or is it about a loved one? What can you do to really say that there is no shame? Because ultimately, mental illness is not about the other, it's about us. So I'm going to stop here. And I'm going to share with you, we are united under that banner of acceptance. Those three words that I want you to leave with, those three phrases. There's no shame in talking about what you're going through. There's no shame in seeking help. And if you're diagnosed with mental illness, there's ultimately hope. You are doing it. We are here doing it together. So before I leave, I would like to share a poem, another poem with you, a full poem with you. Is that all right? Yes. All right, cool. So this poem came from a morning when I was laying in bed and my boss called me. He says, Hakeem, where are you? And I actually told him I had the flu. I told him I had the flu, but when in fact I was depressed and anxious and I was very, very symptomatic. And then I wrote this poem. I got up out of bed and I reflected and I wrote this poem. And it's called It's Not Those Days. It is not the days when you leap out of bed, ready to leap the tallest building in one bound, of the days where the roses smell sweet and the honey tastes good. It is not the days when you are kissed and hugged and loved. It is not the days where faith and hope are chilling by your right side and perseverance is walking in sync step. Better yet, it is not your happy days. It is the days where motivation seems to have fallen by the wayside and languishes a brutal precipitation. It is the days that you feel to do little, yet there is so much to be done. The days that test your faith, your love, and your compassion. The days that your confidence is compromised and your esteem is mauled by the abyss. It is then when you have to reach down and reach your bristle. When you could not listen to naysayers, including your own dissenting voice, that is when you have shown your true essence. See, faith is easy from the armchair. But when you must fight from the front lines, your dissenting self and win, they come out positive. Your bruises and scars and all, that is when we each show our true colors and compassion. So today, when I say today, please say today with me. Today. Today. I want you to paint the town red and blue with me today. Today. I want you to hoist oranges and mauves above your head with me today. Today. I want you to yellow the tar and indigo the ground with me today. Today. I want you to each carry stained glass urns full of aqua ashes and spread them across the crystal clear seas of everybody you touch with me today. Today. I want you to each magenta your conscience and all of you to erase your ego. As today, since we're here together and we know that we've been impacted by mental illness, since we're here together and we know that we all are doing something about it, since we're here together and we know that we've been impacted by shame, but we are not laying down, today, we must all do the same. Thank you so much for having me here. Thank you so much for awesome work that each and every single one of you are doing, because I've been personally impacted, and you're doing it for so many other people as well. So thank you. Have a great afternoon.